Hello, everybody. Welcome to, I can never remember the name of the stream, the Project Doc. I'm your host, Brian Lough. And so if you haven't seen this stream before, it's something I've been doing for the last couple of weeks on my second channel. I think there's a link to that in the description. There's a link to a playlist with the previous ones of this anyways, so we can get it from there. So what we do on this stream is basically you join in and somebody comes on and presents a project. There's a max time limit of around 10 minutes, and it can be a project that's already completed, or it can be something you're working on at the moment, or it can even be an idea for something, and it's something if you just want to talk about it, get help, show off what you're doing, anything at all. And it doesn't need to be like a really big project or anything. Like if you're someone who's just starting out and they've just got an LED blinking, I want to hear about that too. That's all good stuff. Sorry that I look so pale. I have two monitors taking up like a huge amount of space in front of me, and the screen on them is mainly white, and that's what's causing the large light on my face. I probably should work on the lighting a little bit, or maybe just darken it or something. I don't know. But so if you do want to join in, there's a link in the description to my Discord group. If you just tag me in the Discord, so if you just do an @BrianL and just say, hey, I'd like to join, I'll add you to a role, and you will be able to see the link then to join this stream, and you can join in. So if anybody is ready to join in, then hop onto that link. And so this is the first time doing it on the main channel. As I mentioned, I've been doing it on the second channel for the last while, and it's been going really good. I've been really enjoying talking to people about their projects. It's something that I don't like. One of my problems with streaming is I was starting a ton of projects and like not finishing them. But now I get to talk to you about all your projects, and that's very interesting to me. Okay, so we have our first person up. So everybody, please welcome Deshepu.
Hello. So yeah.
Deshepu, just before you get started, because maybe not everybody was watching, could you let everybody know who you are and where you're from?
All right. So I live in Switzerland. I come from Poland, and I basically work as a Python programmer. And in my off time, I try to run away from high-level languages by doing low-level stuff with hardware. That's pretty much it.
Sounds good. So what do you have for us today, Deshepu?
Right. So you know those people who type on the keyboards, they type like one letter at a time. This is, so inefficient.
That's my dad.
Old. So I mean, you have like only one letter on each key. That's so old. So there is a solution for this, and it's called the stenotype.
Okay.
And the idea is that it looks like this.
Okay.
It's not my invention. It has been used in like court cases or anywhere where you need to type very fast.
So the court people who type are called stenographers, and they have special keyboards. It looks like this, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the stenotype.
Okay. Yeah.
And the idea is that you don't type the word letter by letter. You just press all the letters for a word all at once.
Okay.
And there is an additional complication in that you don't, so that you don't have to think how that word is actually spelled.
Yeah.
You type it phonetically.
Okay. This sounds like a game, like
right.
Yeah. Okay.
So for instance, if you wanted to type cat, you would press K, A, and T. You notice there are two T's.
Yeah, I was
because, like, you can have a T on the beginning of the word or on the end of the word.
Oh my god! Can you type like this?
Yeah, you can type like there are people like after you have learned like for 2 years, you type at about 300 words per minute, which
Wow.
is about the maximum you can do on a regular keyboard.
Yeah.
And there are people who can do like 600.
Wow. Yeah. That's crazy.
People who do subtitles for movies, for
Yeah.
instance, often they are like those real-time subtitles
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
news or something like that. This is often done with this. So it's
Wow.
great. You can type faster than you can think. Well, in my case,
yeah.
that's not.
Yeah, I was about to make the same joke.
Right.
That's really cool. And what are the top buttons?
That's the number bar. Basically,
Okay.
this is supposed to be a single bar, but
Yeah.
I didn't like technically didn't have a way
Yeah.
because this is like a normal mechanical keyboard.
Yeah.
Using mechanical keyboard switches. So
Yep.
I made it like separate keys. But normally it's a single bar, and while you because the way you use this, how to show it? You basically have one hand here and one hand here, and the hands almost don't move.
Yeah, sure.
And normally the keys are longer; they are almost like piano keys.
Okay.
So you like typing on this is much more like playing on the piano than typing normally. And you press like several keys at once with one finger. So this number bar is so that you can type digits, basically.
Okay.
And the digits are also like in a crazy way because you can type like three digit numbers with one key press.
Okay.
And things like that. So
this sounds crazy.
So there is an open source program that does this for you. You can do it on a regular keyboard too.
Oh, really?
It's called Plover.
Yeah.
Like the bird.
Yeah.
And it also has support for like special stenotype keyboards like this one. So I wanted to make one of my own so that I can have like a separate, because if you use your regular keyboard, you cannot type normally.
Yeah.
Right? Because the Plover program is capturing that.
Yeah.
And this is basically a serial device.
So
you can have it in addition to regular keyboard. So then you can train a little bit with this and then switch the normal keyboard to answer on IRC or whatever.
So Clover is the name of the software. So that will that do the mapping back to a word? So Arturo
it contains the dictionary in there.
Okay.
And you can also extend this with your own things. There is a brilliant presentation about programming in Python with this, where the person who did the presentation did her additional dictionary entries for things like a loop, if statement, and so on, with braces and everything.
That's cool. Yeah, so, that's really interesting. So what technically what do you have running under the hood there? SAMD21 is it or something?
Yeah, as usual, because right now it works as a keyboard. So I'm using this function of Plover of using a regular keyboard.
Okay.
I just mapped the keys to those keys on the keyboard that normally Plover would use.
Yep.
And the plan is to actually rewrite it to use a serial device and act as a off the shelf real stenotype device.
So did the stenotypes work as a serial device? Is that what you said? Oh, interesting. So they don't appear as a HID device. They just barf messages over the serial.
Yeah, and it's always like a fixed length, like 7 bytes thing.
Yeah.
Or
that's interesting.
Like that basically bitmap of which keys you have pressed.
Yeah.
So very simple.
And is there any kind of hardware specific things that you need to consider with the amount of keys that are being pressed at the one time? As in you have to.
So you need the N key rollover keyboard. You need one of those more expensive keyboards where you can press any number of keys at once.
Yeah.
Regular keyboards only allow you to press 6.
Yeah.
and that's not enough. Though Plover has a workaround for this.
Okay.
As long as you don't release all the keys,
Yeah.
you can press those keys like in order. You don't have to press all of them, so you can press some of them, and without releasing, press some more.
Yeah.
And then it works.
From a hardware design point of view, then, does it limit some of, like, do you need to have a dedicated GPIO for, is there any limits around that? Like, can you not do button matrixing or?
All you need is the diodes on your key matrix.
Sure.
So that you don't have ghosting.
Yeah.
And that's it. Then you do a normal scanning matrix thing, like a normal keyboard.
Cool.
So that's pretty simple.
So did you just make this to practice your?
Yes, of course. I mean, like practicing this is very boring, as you can imagine. So to motivate myself, I do. But this is the second one I made.
It's really nice.
It's not working. I'm making stenotypes instead of practicing.
And you talk in my Discord a bit about the different keypads or the different buttons or whatever. What buttons do you have on those ones? They look fairly low profile.
So, yeah, those are generally all my keyboards are low profile. So those are Kale chocolate switches. And I actually got like a test set of 13 different ones. 12 of those are here, and the one I'm using is this one, which is the one with the blue bottom. So that's 25 gram linear switch. So this is the lightest switch I could find. And the reason for this is that because you have to press a lot of keys at once.
Yeah,
they add up. They add up. So you have a lot of force in total to press. So that's why I've chosen the lightest switches there are.
Makes sense. Yeah, that's a really interesting project to Shepu. It's even the whole it's a thing I knew absolutely nothing about.
Yeah, there is a whole community of stenotypists.
Yeah.
Who they have their own tools, they have their own things they are making, and there is this this person who does sightseeing for deaf people.
Yep.
And she walks with a screen on her back and a stenotype on in front of her, and she types on the stenotype, and it gets displayed on the screen on her back, so that she can explain everything in a museum.
That's amazing.
To deaf people. It works very well.
Yeah, that's amazing. Do you know what's funny? Like, if you had asked me 15 years ago, even would we be doing stuff like that? I'd be like, oh no, voice would be at a position now where we'd be able to transcode it so fast. But it still doesn't work great, or at least for me, anyways. Yeah, maybe it's just my accent.
No, it's not just accent. In electronics, especially, there is no way of telling serial from cereal.
The eat cereal.
Exactly.
Pod cereal. Yeah.
So things like that. You really need the context. The machine can do.
Yep. Yeah, no, that's great, Shepu. Is this another project you have on Hackaday.io?
Yeah, of course. All my projects are there, so you can go to hackaday.io/deshipu.
Cool. Yeah, I might get you to leave a link in the Discord, and I'll update the description then after that with all the links from people. Yeah, so everybody give a round of applause or a thank you to Deshipu. Really appreciate you jumping on and teaching us some things. So thank you.
Thank you.
Right. So that was Deshipu with his I can't remember the name of it, stenotype keyboard. He wants to be a stenographer apparently. Yeah, really cool. So thank you for that. We have Braydon joining soon, but his OBS stream doesn't seem to be quite up and running, so I don't know if he needs a minute. So we'll just talk randomly. I got a new toy, and I actually bought it myself. Where is... Stop being so bright, screen. You can see the picture even if you can't see the text. It's a hot plate for ants. Yeah, it's the Miniware hot plate. You know, the thing for doing solder rework, but it's tiny. It's so small. But what can you do? Right, it looks like Braydon is ready, so welcome along, Braydon. So Braydon, tell people who you are, where you're from, and then we'll talk about your project.
Hopefully you can hear me. I'm from the United States, the greater DC metropolitan area. The thing I just wanted to quickly go over, and people on Instagram and on Twitter have seen, I don't know, probably countless posts on it, is my Portaprog, stands for Portable Programmer. This started back when I did the E-Challenge coin last year, and I did program 250 devices. And that used an 18 mega 328 PB, which is programmed with ISP, but I wanted to be able to do it at the bench. So I created at the time an ESP32 based programmer for ISP chips. I've subsequently moved over to the newer generation of Atmel chips, which use UDPI to program them, which is a single pin bidirectional serial on a single pin. And so I needed to upgrade the programmer. And when I did it, I started watching the Unexpected Maker stream and got into this whole notion of, well, I should automate my smoke tests, and a whole bunch of other stuff just sort of piled onto it. And so I've created this, which I'll show you the live version floating around here somewhere.
Sure.
There we go. This is my test jig, which is a whole nother story for people, but I'll get that out of the way. So here's a couple of the Portaprogs. I think I can even get a little closer. Let's see if this works.
Yep,
there we go.
Looks pretty good.
So you can see it's pretty small. It's actually built using a TTGo T-Display, which is you know, a little board with a, what is it, a 240 by 135.
I think I have one. They were selling them for $1 at one stage.
Oh my goodness, no! I haven't. Best I've been able to see is like $6.80 US. But anyway, so when it first boots up, it just gives you some status, and it's got a nav button at the top that will let you go up and nav. So you can use this over it. And I should point out, one of the reasons why I ended up creating my own from scratch was that a lot of the programmers out there, A, you had to have them connected to your computer all the time.
Yep.
And B, they were using a modified version of AVR Dude. It wasn't even a public version of it. And so you had all these hoops to jump through. Well, when I started trying to support both UDPI and ISP, I just said, I'm throwing all that out. And so I just created, literally, it's you just type commands over a TCP connection. So from Linux, you can just echo into NC, and all your commands go. So you can, while you're working on a project, you can update, you can basically send firmware directly to this, and then it's got a series of pins over here, and I've got cables for different kinds of different devices that I'm working on, including my test jig.
Yeah.
But so you can use it interactively, but then when you're all done, you can actually load the firmware on here, and you can have stacks and stacks and stacks of firmware, and you can just scroll down to the one you want, press and hold, and then you can flash or delete or update or whatever else you want. But then these three buttons are fully programmable. So you could actually have one of these buttons just to repeat the flash process. So flash, flash, flash. And it's small, it's battery powered. You can take it to your bench. You don't have to have your computer because it will use the SPI content there. But when I started watching the Unexpected Maker and the whole notion of, well, I should really smoke test these, it got out of control really fast. And so it now has a command set that includes, you can ask it for help. It can auto detect whether it's a SPI or a UDPI project attached to it. You can get information about the chip. These are all commands you can issue over TCP, but you can also then create scripts that you store on it, and you can run smoke tests. And so you can do a delete and a cat and an update and send and receive and load of things. But then you can program fuses, you can read fuses, you can erase the chip, you can write to the chip, you can read from the chip, so you can dump content. You can read and write to the EEPROM. You can power cycle the device. You can update the programming scripts that are attached to the buttons. And then you can start doing things for smoke tests. You can send text. You can send strings over to, if you look closely, it also has a TX and RX on it, so you can connect that up to your device. So you can send text to your attached device, wait for responses back. You can test the content of what came back, and then branch if you want to based on that. You can have a button that waits. I mean, it just got way out of control. But it now allows me to write test scripts that I store on this device, and then I plug it into a jig, which was that orange thing you saw earlier. And I can run a smoke test, and as it runs down through, I can press a button to say continue the smoke test, or press a button and tell it to abort the smoke test because the chip, the board failed, and I put it in another pile. And so that's how this thing sort of came to be. I'm going to do one more revision of the board, because you can see just closely, you can see some orange bodge wires in there.
We still see your
sorry,
your screen share.
Yeah, I always keep doing that. Sorry.
That's all right.
I'm not a guru when it comes to. If you look closely, you see some orange bodge wires in there.
Yeah.
What I'm going to do on the final version, I'm actually going to remove those two buttons from the board completely, and then extend my board into those two locations, because I've actually relocated those two buttons up to here up on the top.
Yeah.
Because I just ran out of GPIO pins. I use almost every pin that there is on the board at this point.
Yeah, and I presume this board doesn't have all the ESP32's pins broken out. Have you had to grab them from weird places or anything? I presume the button ones are...
No, the only ones I've had to grab from weird places are those two buttons you see right there. These two buttons on the board. I mean, there are a few probably pins that if they were exposed, I wouldn't need to do this. But one of these is GPIO 0 and one of these is GPIO 35. But I think I might have a board floating around here. I can show the backside of and zoom in a little bit.
Sure.
But the TTGo T-Display actually has a lot of pins available.
Yeah.
Which is why I needed to use it, because, like I said, between exposing I needed 4 pins plus VCC and ground for the SPI. I needed another 2 pins for UDPI. I wanted to also expose I to C in case somebody wanted to use that, so I needed those 2 pins. Then this thing is basically 3 buttons, so there's 3 more pins, and then these 3 buttons were 3 more pins, and that's why I needed to steal the other 2 from the front. And UDPI, I was having a problem with programming or getting the chip into program mode, and it was because if you leave it connected up to a jig, it's connected up to TX and RX and the UDP and the ground, and it was getting just enough bleed through current that it wouldn't shut down.
And
so my solution to that was I actually ended up putting a MOSFET on the ground side. And so there's a ground pin, and then there's a switched ground pin. And once I did that, I can reliably take it in and out of UDPI programming mode without any problems.
Nice. So just to the people watching, why you would want something like this? So I have not this year, but the year before, I made a lot of PCB trees, which were in a tiny 13 project. And I made myself a jig, which was incredibly less impressive than something like this. It was basically an Arduino Nano connected as an Arduino as ISP to like a socket. So I was dropping the tinies in, and I had wrote a script that used regular AVR dude or whatever to like just basically I press enter on my keyboard and it would flash the hex, or burn the bootloader, flash the hex, and then I'd swap out the next one, press enter. And like it wasn't that like it was okay. It wasn't super good, but I would love something like this. You know, like that would improve things massively, because then I wouldn't need to be connected to my computer. From what I've seen of you doing it already, it's way faster than the Arduino as ISP was as well.
Oh
So
yeah, I mean, when I did the e-challenge coin, I actually decided to pre-program the chips before they even got soldered onto the board with the smoke test code.
Yeah.
But when I do my ornaments for an AT, which is an AT-Tiny 13,
yeah,
when I use the Portaprog, I'm programming a PCB every 15 or 20 seconds tops. So literally as fast as I can plug the jumper into it and push the button, it programs, and I pull the jumper out and I plug in the next one. So that's why I created it. And then going forward, my boards are getting more complicated. And so I've created this setup, and a Portaprog just snaps into it. And then this center module swaps out for each project. So I've got one right now. I'm working on the e-challenge card. And so there's that one.
Yeah, this is a great idea.
And that module slides out, and I've got one already for the next e-challenge coin, the 2021 coin. So yeah, the Portaprog for me is just, it's batch programming, and now it's it's smoke test too.
So I guess the question that I would have is the Portaprog ever going to be a Porta product? I don't know why that was dumb.
Yeah, no. So I plan to put it out on Tindy like everybody else does. The price point's really hard because it's a bit of a, I'll be honest, it's a bit of a hack. I think it will look a little better when I remove the two buttons and expand my board onto it, because then there's no bodge wires showing at all. But it turned out that it was actually cheaper for me to modify the TTGo T-Display board than it was to build a board outright.
I think this is an interesting thing that people like kind of are surprised with when they see things on Tindy, that like sometimes it is cheaper to, like, for me to build an ESP32 dev board, right? So say this is the one that looks like a D1 Mini. This costs like between $4 and $5. Like I couldn't buy everything on this for that price. Like, never mind, you know, like assemble it myself and sell it on Tindy and make money. You know, as in, like, it's crazy the price difference. You know, you get into when you have to assemble things yourself. But it does have the disadvantages of, you know, you need to source that. If TTGo ever stops selling them, then you're out of luck. And, you know, there's trade-offs with it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think there would be a market for hundreds of these, but probably, you know, some tens of these. The interesting thing is if you don't want to use it as a programmer, there's two other applications, and I've already played around with one of them. One is it works out really well as a little pocket gaming device. You know, because you've got enough control buttons on it. The other thing that I've used it for, and since I'm at my desk, I don't need it today. I'm using it as an OBS Studio Switcher.
Oh yeah. Perfect.
And it's so small, it sits in my hand. So literally, you know, I can look at the display if I want to know what scene it is, but if I also know what scene I'm going to, I can just have the top three buttons pre-programmed to, you know, for common scenes, and then the nav button if I need to get to any odd scene on the fly. But yeah, it makes for a great, because you end up with something about that big.
Yeah.
You know, and it's comfortable in the hand, and so it's got some other uses for it. So I'll do one more revision of the board and probably put, you know, 10 at a time out on Tindy and just see what happens.
Yeah, well, you never know. Like with stuff, as Unexpected Maker says, I'll only ever sell 10 or 20 reflow masters. Like that's like no, no. Let's be clear. For every reflow master or whatever, I'd say the exact same thing about my power blockers. That like I got like 200 PCBs panelized the first time I got power blockers, and I was like, this is more than a lifetime supply of these, and that has not been the case. But like for every one of those ones that we're talking about, there's also ones that there's plenty of the original order of them still here. But yeah, it's funny. Like it's definitely a niche product, but I could see it being I could like like the reflow master is almost like a perfect kind of parallel. Like there's a lot of people building stuff, like as in having tools to solve people's problems are generally a desirable thing. Braden, I think we're going to have to finish there in terms of time wise, but thanks so much for joining. If people want to find out more about this project, where do they go? Or
you can catch me on Twitter, Instagram, and then I don't know if you can see it on there, but there's the GitHub. All the source code to the Portaprog is public. So if anybody's ever interested in going off and trying to build one of these, if you don't want all the buttons, you can go get almost any TTGo type board that's got even a tiny display on it. And you can navigate. You can make this code work very easily. The original version of this just used the two buttons that were native to the device.
Yeah. No, that's super cool. Okay, thank you, Braden. I'll catch you again. Thanks for joining. Okay, so that was Braden's Portaprog. I want to get one. So if he does end up selling them on Tindy, I'll be one of his first customers, maybe. I must show you the janky thing I have at some stage. But, it works all right. Okay. We've got a few people lined up now, so I'm pretty happy with this. But first, in the door, we have to welcome all the way from down under, Sion. Hey, Sion, how's it going?
Good, mate. How are you, Brian?
I'm good. So, Sion, tell everybody who you are and where you're from. That they don't already know.
Right. Unexpected Maker in Melbourne, Australia. I've got a YouTube channel, and I make and sell hardware and make videos sometimes. Not enough.
Yep. That feeling. Yep.
Yeah. And I've got nothing to show. I didn't come on here to show anything. I just think that was after Braden's stuff. I thought that was quite interesting. I will buy one. Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I don't even know if you work with those, like the Atmel chips that much, but it's like, well, if I did want to, this would be ideal, right?
Right. Or do you remember, like, I know I was speaking to Dustin Watts a while ago because he's got a little program he's made for AT Tinies, but he hasn't finished it yet. And I've been kind of chasing him down, hey, finish it, and I'll grab one. And then I was looking on Tindy the other day because I wanted a program. Because from my tiny digit, like when I started like hacking these, it's got a 1606 on it. And I didn't have a programmer for it. So I had to do the whole go find a nano somewhere. Like buried, right? Flash some software on the nano, wires everywhere, always coming loose. Half the time it doesn't program. So I wanted a solution to be able to just flash these when I'm testing, right?
Yep.
And ended up like buying something off Tindy, which kind of looks okay, but nothing like what Braden's doing. Yeah. Like I'd buy one. I'd just buy one to have it in my arsenal of stuff, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I could even imagine like you could get to the stage where you could even do like weird stuff, like add it as another programming option over the wire in the Arduino IDE, as in like, the way you select like Arduino as ISP, like there could just be a Portaprog one and it just, let me shoot that hex dump over the wire and everything's cool. Absolutely. Like that. That'd be nice. You did have a few projects within a Tiny 85, actually, now that I think of it. You had the
have in the past, yeah. Like on my back.
Maybe you never sold them on Tindy though, was it?
Which
you
one?
did have one. You had one for bottom lighting the.
Yeah, I never released it. I've got.
Okay. Yeah.
Funny, I've got them in a box ready to go. But
yeah.
But my 2018, 2019 badge used Tiny 85s. I'm still working on my rocket kit thing that some people might remember. That's got a Tiny 85 on it just because it needs to be hand soldered. And like my Tiny Digit is using, as I said, it was a 406, it's now a 1606. Yeah. And I plan on using more of these. The problem is programming them. But so an interesting thing that I've been trying to look at doing. So for those that don't know, you can flash an ESP32 with an ESP32 if you did not know that.
I didn't know that.
Espressif actually released a project that allows you to do that. It's some special firmware that you can put on, and you can actually flash, like instead of using a computer or a file version. It doesn't, unfortunately, do what I need it to do. But like one of the things I've been looking at because with my test jigs, let's just put it away, is like all my test jigs are on Raspberry Pis, and solely so I can run ESP tool. To flash them, right, and have them stand on. And so many times now I've started and then stopped within 10 minutes of porting ESP tool over to run on the ESP32. Right, it's basically a Python script that runs on top of like PySerial, right? Yeah. And it's just bit banging data over serial too, right? But ESP tools become so complex. Like the earlier versions were much easier, but now they support so many different chips and stuff that it's just it's a daunting thing. But technically, there's no reason why the Portaprog couldn't eventually flash an ESP32 as well, right? Yeah. If someone, not me,
anybody but me,
I got too many software challenges as it is. But like that's another thing that could be quite interesting. Or the RP 2040, you can technically make a virtual USB port. Like you could technically connect a USB connector to it and then plug something into it and have it appear like a USB host, right? Which means you could maybe write some code for an RP 2040 to flash something by plugging a USB, as USB. Like there's a lot of opportunities now where I could hopefully maybe one day move away from the Raspberry Pi, because it's pretty overkill. Like running a whole operating system just to flash an ESP32.
For sure. That would be. I definitely don't want to do that. Doing the porting stuff, but it's like it would be interesting to have. Do you know one thing that like I don't know if we use as much as we should, or if there is a system where we could do it, but like bug bounties is in maybe there should be like maker bounties with these kind of things as well. Like if somebody successfully ports over ESP tool to the ESP32, like I'll throw in $10 into the hat or what, as in there would be a this thing,
a little maker crowdfunding platform.
Yeah, like I said, I think you can do it on GitHub. So like say you went to like, I don't know, my Telegram library's GitHub. Somebody can open an issue, and I think maybe it needs to be enabled on a repo basis, but I think you can say like, hey, I'm going to start a bug bounty for this. So if somebody fixes this bug or adds this feature, I'll chip in $10, and other people can go, I'll chip in $10. I've definitely seen it before, but I guess it would have to be like more decentralized than that, because it's not on a specific area of code, right? It'd nearly need to be on like, I don't know, hackaday.io or somewhere generic that like people can jump in. But like, there's these quality of life things that people would probably be happy enough to chip in a little bit to, like.
For sure. Especially if it's in this case, the ESP tool stuff's a software problem, right?
Yeah.
You need to know Python pretty well. You need to have worked with PySerial and stuff. You need to have some programming chops to be able to do it, right? Which it definitely looks like Braden does. if you look at what he's doing, his API and everything else. So if you're still listening, Braden, I mean,
he's in the chat. So
yeah. Oh, I can't see the chat. I'm not looking at the chat. Actually,
okay.
Chat right now. I'm not looking.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like the idea of a platform, like a standalone platform. That's like a. It's almost like what's the one where you can put up a campaign and people can donate.
Indiegogo or GoFundMe or
like GoFundMe.
Yeah.
Right, like that, but rather than a person doing it, like a platform like that where someone can put a request in for something. Like it'd have to be moderated really heavily. People just stuff. You'll get people from I won't name which country putting requests for someone to do their
homework
for them. Right? Yeah, right. So you're gonna
I might ease the burden. I don't know when it is, but there's some time of the year where those just like increase tenfold, which is crazy. But I could see this being a thing. But now the first thing we need to do, the very first one, is somebody has to set up this site. So we need to bug bounty the work of doing on this site. So we're at an impasse here. So like Aaron puts up a point about like that you'd have to check really carefully. Something like ESP prog or whatever ESP tool or whatever would be easy enough to check, right? Because you could just go, okay, it doesn't work, or I can flash my ESP32 with it. But it would be more complicated for some things. And like, if it was say, oh, I want to add this feature to something, maybe their interpretation of what that feature does or doesn't do, or, it might be different. So like, it's not without its challenges for sure, but I think it's an interesting,
you could also have people that would only work on the portion of it that interests them or that they needed, and maybe leave other features out or not working. Like it could definitely become a.
It would have to. I think it'd have to have like pretty good like acceptance criteria or whatever. As in there would have to be really clear defined. Like as in it needs to do X, Y, Z for this to be an acceptable solution.
Yeah,
and
with milestones or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it could be a platform where people vote. So like you put a request in, like, or someone says, I would like someone to do this, right? And then it needs to get X many votes from the community before it becomes something that can be taken on as a paid project, right?
Yeah.
Listed as Yeah, it sounds like a really complex website to build.
Well, this is certainly something I'm not doing anyways. But free idea for anybody. I don't know how you're going to monetize it. I guess you could take like a percentage. There you go. Figured out the monetization too. That's pretty cool. Sian, thank you for
giving some money. Sorry, I'd volunteer to give in some money if someone wants to put a platform like that together. Like I'd help financially.
Yeah,
so,
I'll throw in my $5 as well.
Okay. Thanks,
Sian,
Brian.
thank you so much for joining.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Again.
Bye.
Bye-bye. All right, so that was a little-known maker called Sian from Australia. Thank you so much to him for joining. And it was like an episode of Shark Tank or something. That was kind of, I don't know, there was an unexpected turn. Okay, next we have Kethan with the invisible H. Hello. Did I pronounce it right this time?
Yeah, you got it right. Good job.
Awesome. I was worried about that for the last 5 minutes.
Oh, no, you nailed it.
Okay, awesome.
So I guess I've hinted about this on the Discord a bunch, and this is sort of an earlier vision of, I guess I should give a bit of a backstory for what I'm trying to do here. The idea is to build a low-cost oscilloscope for people, open source oscilloscope people can put together. The goal would be something like, the goal would be 50 megahertz, 250 megasample per second for a total cost of, a fully assembled cost of $100 or less is the goal.
Yep.
So I guess, maybe I could share my screen. It's a little bit easier to show. Share this one. So the main things about it is it's like an FPGA. It's got memory. It's got an ADC on the front. But where I'm having trouble
sorry, I'm not sure. There you go.
Oh, yeah. It's got like an FPGA here. It's got like an ADC, a bunch of high-speed memory. I think mostly what I'd be looking for is like, if people could ping me on the Discord, just ideas of what features something like this people would want. So some things I've like thought about are like, try to give it like a VGA display so you could hook this directly up to like a monitor or something so you don't have to use a computer. But I'm sort of at a brick wall of like ideas of where to take it.
How would you achieve the VGA display, just out of curiosity? Like, what would you be able to use the stuff that are already there, or would you need to add an extra peripheral? Or
the VGA display, ideally it would be an HDMI, but I think that's going to be a little bit hard for. I'd rather just get this out.
BitLooney just demoed on one of his last streams a HDMI display coming from the Pico. Like, I wonder, could you drop in the RP 2040 or whatever it is?
Yeah, I think the problem with doing that is it gets very like cost. Also, like software is sort of I can write like gateware for an FPGA, but as soon as I'm writing software, this project will not be completed. But
yeah. Well, there's this new website that we've been working on for the last 10 minutes.
Yeah, I will also contribute. If someone wants to write my code for me, I'm more than happy to do that. And just, it wouldn't be me if I didn't have some renders to go along with it.
So for people who don't know, the Lattice is an FPGA, right?
Lattice is like STM, like they make FPGAs. So this is a Mach X02, if anyone's curious. I'd probably replace it with an ECP5 so that I could start using the open source FPGA toolchain. But the idea here is just sort of the hardware backbone behind like an oscilloscope. Like it could take these high-speed measurements. It'll have like an analog front end. But I don't know, like doing the hardware is kind of the easy, but it's like what features will people find useful? Do people want a full computer-based oscilloscope? I don't know. That's sort of, I think like
computer-based ones do exist already. I don't know if there's problems with them or not. Most people don't. They don't seem to be that popular, the computer-based ones. But so you're talking to a guy who does not own a scope. So I am not like. I was going to say I'm not the target audience, but I probably would be the target audience, because if this was available, I would probably get it. Like, just because I think it would be cool. Like, I just haven't needed to use a scope that much. I'm definitely more the software side of things than the hardware side. Now, there's a couple of times where I could have used a scope. Like, as in, say someone goes, "Hey, what's the noise like out of the FlexiFriend?" And I'm like, I don't know.
I find as well with scopes, like I didn't have one till like quite recently, and up until I got one, I was like, oh, I don't need a scope. The second I got one, it's like every time I need to do anything, it's the first tool I reach for. It's one of those like once you have it, you need it. But
it's kind of the opposite of that saying, if all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. Like, just suddenly when you have a scope, it's a tool you can use. So it's like, oh, this looks like a problem.
Yeah, as soon as you have a screwdriver, you're not going to hit a screw with a hammer anymore, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But I guess the long and short of it would be like, if anyone has any ideas, if anyone wants to contribute, it's open source as well. It's on my GitHub. It's still pretty early, but I'd love for like some feedback and ideas on it, because I'm sort of at an impasse of where to go with it next, I think.
Yep. Yeah, so people, if you want to do that, I'll get the links for stuff off you, Kethan, in the Discord, and I'll put it up in the description and stuff. Like, in general, I always think it's best to do like the simplest thing first, so you can kind of rule out, you can, like, I guess at this stage you're still in the prototype, so you don't know kind of how good it is, right? Or like I'm
like on paper numbers basically right now.
Yeah. Right? Like, is in, it say the HDMI part doesn't matter if you're getting like, if you have a problem with your results somewhere else, or what, as in, for me, I think like you've so much stuff that is kind of probably unknown at the moment. You're much more comfortable with this stuff than I would be, but like, as in, there's a lot that could potentially go wrong before you get to the like VGA or HDMI part. So like, what would be the simplest way of testing that? Like, as in, can you output
like a viable product or something?
Yeah, exactly. Like, could you output it to serial, or could you, you know, as in, then you could maybe throw together something really quick to just display it on a screen, you know, that gets you some of the way or whatever. I would.
Sure. Well, yeah, I'll definitely take that into consideration. But still, if anyone has any ideas, I would still like to put them in a sort of in a document, at least for now. That'd be great. But
yep.
Anyways.
Cool. Yeah, I'll get those links off you, Catherine, and I'll update the description. And thank you so much for joining.
Thanks. Cheers.
Okay. Okay, so guys, if there's more people who want to join, we might stream a little bit longer than the hour this time, just because it's on the main channel. So, you know, I'll keep going for probably another hour-ish after this. So, you know, if there's still people here, let's keep talking. But if there's not, we might finish earlier. So let's see. But next up, we've got Quindor. Hello, Quindor.
Hi there.
Am I pronouncing that right?
Yeah, that's right. Quindor
Okay,
from
cool.
Intermittent Technology and QueenLED.info. I have a YouTube channel, just like you do. And I do some stuff surrounding Home Assistant, IP cameras, server builds, and for the past few years, a lot about LED stuff. And, well, I was soldering a new prototype board while watching your stream. So I was like...
So this is hot off. It's still warm. You won't even be able to hold it up.
Yeah. But I thought, okay, maybe I can show off my boards. So in the past, I've made analog dimmer boards mostly. All the lighting you see around me for my studio and stuff like that is using my own analog dimmers.
Nice.
And in the past few years, I've been working on digital controllers based on the ESP8266 and or the ESP32. And, well, I thought I could show that off. So, well, this is the board I was just working on. This is a new prototype where I'm trying to build a buck boost circuit onto the PCB itself. But that's, well, this is a prototype. I don't even know if it works yet because, well, you caught me halfway.
This is hot off the press. This
yeah,
couldn't
exactly.
be hotter.
Yeah. So looking at a previous revision of it is this thing.
Yep.
And of course, most of the people nowadays know WLED to drive your LEDs. Great software for if you have an ESP8266 or an ESP32.
Yeah, it's just for people who don't know, it's like a web, well, it's a lot of stuff, but basically it's a way of controlling addressable LEDs. Its main thing is a web interface, but it probably does have like MQTT and other stuff as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, it has an API that hooks into Home Assistant, for instance, and it has all kinds of cool effects, as you can see in the background, and it's a very easy way to get started with addressable LEDs.
Definitely, yep.
Yeah, so in 2019, I made a DIY board for that. So only the specifications, you could get the PCBs made by PCBWay, stuff like that. I don't share the Gerbers or the project files anymore. I used to do that in the past with my analog boards, but I got into a lot of trouble where I'd update the boards and the Gerber files and stuff like that. But people downloaded an earlier version before that and then would still use the updated guides and got the wrong component. And yeah, so I have links. You can buy get the PCBs made by PCBWay and then do it as a DIY project. I have a whole hardware guide where you can get all the components from AliExpress and stuff like that. And in 2020, I started to doing a separate version that I call the pre-assembled. And it's funny, like we were talking about before, is like, at first I got 100 made. Those were gone in 12 hours.
Wow.
So then I had 1,000 made, then I went to 500 and that was gone in like 3 days. So now I'm making them by the 1,000. And
wow, that's great.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's really cool. So this is a newer revision of it, but basically what the board adds to running WLED just bare ESP is, well, first of all, you have some screw terminals you can screw your LEDs into. It has the capacitor on board to prevent voltage spikes or sags. It has built-in 5-volt and 12-volt DC-DC converter so that you can hook up 12-volt LEDs but still run your ESP on 5-volt, of course. It has a built-in fuse socket, so you can add a 5, 10, 15 amp fuse depending on the amount of LEDs you connect behind it, so that if
and that's a car fuse, is it, or the same as
So this is actually a mini one I was testing. Normally, I recommend just the normal car fuses indeed, and this is a 5 amp, for instance. So you can vary the fuse, and they're readily available everywhere to the load the LEDs are going to have, and if they suddenly have much more load, well, the fuse pops and nothing burns down. There's a temperature sensor on there, and this is this is actually also an SMD version. So I make 2 versions now: the DIY version and the SMD version, because I'm assembling these. I have a partner in China, and well, anything that can be done by a machine is better. So
I know that feeling.
This one has SMD level shifters. Oh, that's another thing it has. It has level shifters to make sure the data signal's 5-volt. And the DIY version has a through-hole version of that. But as we were discussing earlier, everything is on depends on scale, because you said, well, it doesn't make sense making my own ESP32 board. Well,
here's one. I am moving to making an ESP32 board out of something too. But so how come you are moving to your own ESP32 board out of
curiosity? 2 reasons. Actually, the reason isn't on screen yet. That's this one, and that is because I want to be able to add an Ethernet board to the ESP32, so that people who do like Christmas shows and stuff like that, they do a lot with real-time pixel data, so E31, ArcNet, and stuff like that. And well, basically, the whole idea is that you can now get these will only be pre-assembled, because I won't ask people to build something like this at home. I did, but I have a microscope. So basically, you can plug it on top, and then if you already have an existing board, you can basically just upgrade it by plugging in my custom ESP32 and Ethernet top hat, basically. And now you have an Ethernet-powered board where you only had, for instance, an ESP8266 before, and then suddenly has dual outputs, so it can do dual parallel outputs. The effect behind me is also running with 4 data ports, and that's actually running on a second board I make. So, but that's funny, because you were saying, like, now that we're making thousands of these, it's becoming more cost-effective, or at least similarly cost-effective as buying them. But the last batch of D1 Mini 32s I had, there was a 35% failure rate.
That's with these ones, isn't it? Oh, sorry, I'm not on screen anymore.
The blue ones?
The blue ones?
Yes.
So what failed for you?
Actually, we had the manufacturer and the supplier, or some engineer, come over in China, and there was a diode on there that was also on the 5V in port, but not on the USB port for some reason. I don't know. I implemented it differently. My diode's on the USB port, not on the 5-volt input, but okay. And that diode on some of the boards, about 35%, was out of spec. So the 4.9 volts that my board, because I have a diode, protection diode on there too, that was getting in, was becoming too low somehow for the voltage regulator that they used. So the ESP couldn't boot anymore. So the LED would turn on, just the ESP32 itself wouldn't boot anymore because it couldn't get the peak current anymore. And
I have so I buy these in nothing like 1,000, like in 50s, and a couple of times, like, I've seen like maybe a 10% fail rate with them. Which is, that's significant enough.
Well, if you buy 1,000, that's like
that's a
100
lot.
boards.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and we had some testing procedure in place, but it didn't catch this problem. So I've been replacing boards left and right. But yeah, I guess that's the danger of doing business then.
That's
yeah.
I was the first one. So I used to buy them like while they were still in their package and go, okay, these are an add-on for my boards that like take them. And I was like, well, if they're still in their, people will surely want the ones that are like brand new, still in their package. So I didn't do anything with them. And I sent one to Australia and the guy goes, it's not working. And I was like, oh, I better start testing these. And since I started testing them, I've found about 10% don't work.
Yeah. Well, so the last batch we had was a lot more. Now I started doing the work on my custom version earlier than that because my Ethernet plugin only works on my custom ESP32 because it uses a slightly different pinout.
Okay, there's a couple of NCs on this one. Is it? It's swapped around for you, is it? Or you've changed a few of these?
Yeah, so there's a star here, and there's, for instance, I have an extra 3v3, I have an extra ground, I have a 5-volt. There's a PDC fuse on my ESP32 because I've seen too many people trying to run 3 amps through a development board using the USB plug for some reason and running LEDs on there and stuff. So there's a fused 5-volt output, and I use some of those connections to do my connections to the Ethernet top hat, basically. So I prepared a little demonstration if we have time. So I have a second board. That's my latest version. So this is called a Quinn LED Dig Uno because officially it had one output. And now with an ESP32 on there, you could call it a duo because you can do dual WS28, etc. But it's still an Uno if you use like APA 102 or SK9822 or some kind of clock-based LED chip. But then I also made this, and this is a Quinn LED Dig Quad. So instead it has 4 data outputs, but it's also made to handle 30 amps continuous through the board. And then it has 5 fuses divided over 7 output terminals because if you're working with 5-volt LEDs, most often you'll need to run one or a few extra power lines to keep the voltage drop from becoming too high. And then you'd need a separate distribution block, and you kind of want fusing per injection line. And so this is all that rolled into one.
Yeah, looks great.
Yeah, and this is also available still DIY, but in the newer revisions I'm working on right now, there will be some features that are pre-assembled only. For instance, the same buck boost circuit is on here now, and the DIY version has a jumper for if you're using 5-volt or 12-volt LEDs, and you have to make some compromises, basically. But this is working. See if it blows up. Who knows?
So when you're plugging that Ethernet in, so is that regular old Ethernet, or is it?
This is just plugged into some gigabit switch, and well, it's blinking away. Yeah, and we have the WLED orange.
Nice.
And we can go to this is our screen. We can go here. So this should now be online, and I can change. My studio lights kind of overpower the. I can put them higher brightness, I guess, and I don't know. We can do palette, for instance. Yeah, so you can do effects and stuff like that using WLED, and WLED. This is actually a preview of the 0.12, where they will have configurable I/O pins for the output in the interface itself. And I
always found that weird. That wasn't a thing. Like, I'm not familiar with WLED at all, but somebody was talking about it on my Discord.
So now in LED preferences, you have hardware setup, and you can add. Well, this is a single, and I can add another output on one of my other pins, and so that's new. But this is still unreleased. It's a development version, and Ethernet support is in there too because I have like 100% signal strength.
That's pretty good. Doesn't get much better than 100%.
Exactly. Yeah.
Quindor, I have a couple of questions for you
Sure,
before we finish up from the chats. Johnny is asking about PoE. I think he's
God.
I think he's being cheeky because CM was talking about it in a previous stream.
Well, it's been a running gag that everyone, when I mention the Ethernet board I'm working on, which is getting closer to release, is asking about PoE. But PoE in combination with LEDs makes no sense whatsoever. You could run like 10 LEDs.
Yeah, it's relatively high voltage normally, but it's not that high current, right?
Yeah, but like wattage wise, you need like 2-3 watts for the ESP, and like the normal standard for PoE is like 15 watts. So, but you get about 12, 10 effectively, and you need a massive DC converter on there to go from 48 volts to 5 volts, and then there's lots of heat, and it's fine to run an ESP, just not the LEDs itself. Yeah. And I might have some plans in the future where these boards also support dual power input with auto switching. So you can have a giant 12 volt, 300 watt LED power supply. And the downside of digital LEDs is each LED has a tiny little controller. So even if they're off, they still use power. But then there's functionality on the board. You can connect an external relay board. And then in WLED, if you turn the LEDs off, it'll switch off the big power supply. And what works right now is you take a phone charger, you snip off the leads, and you put them into the second set of terminals. And then the board stays online using like 1 watt. And then once you want to use it again, it switches the relay, and then the big power supply turns on. And I can see PoE replacing that phone charger, not the big power supply.
Okay, so if people want to find out more about the projects, Quindor, where should they go?
Project is on quinled.info. There's lots of guides there about LEDs and how to build this yourself, hardware guides, soldering guides, programming guides, videos, you name it.
Cool. If you leave a link in the Discord, I'll link to all that stuff in the description. And cool.
Thanks for having me on.
For joining, Quindor. That's a really cool project. Thank you for showing us. Okay, nice. Thank you. Okay, thank you to Quindor. And next up, we have Colin Hickey. Hello, Colin.
Hello. How are you doing?
Introduce yourself. Where are you from?
I'm Colin from Newcastle, northeast of England. I make the odd thing, sell the odd little bits and pieces. A little more so these days. Had a change of career slightly, so putting a teeny bit more effort in these days. And yes, in total contrast to what everyone else has been doing with super complicated and in-depth stuff, apologies I haven't got an overhead camera sorted yet, but I wanted to show just a really simple board, which is a USB Keep Alive, which is based on a 555. So as the old joke goes, you should have used a 555, so I did for that one. And the idea just came about just if you're working with a power bank, sometimes like if I was powering an ESP or SAMD 21 board or something like that, and they only draw a small amount of current, the power bank will shut itself off. And you don't always have the option to have a permanent supply or something like that. So it's not a whole new idea, but there wasn't a super cost-effective solution out there. There's a great one on Tendy, which is fully adjustable and all the bells and whistles, but then it was maybe just a bit more than I was willing to pay type of thing.
This is a likely or typical story of I don't want to pay like something for this, so I'm going to like design my own board and
you don't have to
spend about 5 times as much.
Developing this. Sixth revision, you could have bought about 4 of them. But I thought I'd do a through hole for a change. And the idea being that they're pretty chunky components, and thinking that people could assemble it themselves. And I did a little case as well, which was using I think it's Ruiz Brothers from Adafruit, just a nice little snap fit case. And then the problem I came to, though, is that just about everyone who ordered them wanted me to assemble it. And because I'm not the brightest, I put assembly as an option for something like $2.
I've been there.
Yeah.
So anybody who's planning on selling on Tindy, people will get the assembled version quite a lot. So like,
I was surprised, because I thought it's quite there's only a few components on there, and I thought it's a nice little board to, maybe learn how to go and just practice on it as it works. It's not super expensive. But no, most people want it done. So that kind of pushed me on then to do just the same components, but an SMD version, basically.
Yep.
Which is a little bit extremely diddy. The one thing is the choice of components.
It's a power blocker.
It's not far off, right? Yeah.
It's a power blocker with extra steps.
Yeah, exactly. The idea with that is that it should be far easier to assemble. So I think what I'm going to do is I've got enough for maybe a few 100 or something of the through hole, and that'll be kit only.
Yeah.
People can have fun doing that, and if they're taking HSL, they're taking HSL. And then the SMD, I've started actually trying to be sensible these days, and I just got 5 with the PCBs to test, and that works.
I have started to do that myself a bit too. More out of a waste thing than a price thing. Like, I'm not like the $2 difference or $3 doesn't bother me that much, but it's more like, crap, I got this wrong, and now I have 9 PCBs that are absolutely pointless. Like, how are you assembling them? Actually, how you have a reflow master, or you have an oven based on the reflow master, don't you?
Yes, caution with the wording there. It's a fake one. No, I did a DIY version of that. That's another thing I need to get set up, because I've recently moved my office out here into the garage.
Yeah.
Since I got the 5 and was sensible and it works, I'm kind of torn whether to make the jump and go down the test my toe in the water, the maker fabs, maybe get 100 or something like that. I know there's a setup cost and things, but I think that's maybe a good little simple board to try that with.
Yeah, it's this is a problem I have all the time, where you come out with a new product and you're like, I don't know how popular this is going to be. So like, how many do I order? And if you order like 50, they're much more expensive per board than if you order 100 or whatever. And like, you don't want to be sitting with nothing. And then, the other side of the coin is, if they do well, like say Mr. Dustin Watts is, if he had 100 touchdowns, he probably would have sold them. Yeah. But at the same time, like, he couldn't buy 100 touchdowns because the screens alone are about $12 or $10. So like that's too much money to invest in a product that you don't know for sure it's going to sell. So this is Tindy, right?
Yeah, well, I guess that's the advantage of this. A 555, 2 resistors and 2 caps, and a couple of USB connectors, and it's a tiny PCB as well. So that's like probably the perfect board I can choose for testing my toe in the water. And if I've got 100 sitting there, it's not the end of the world. I think either way that you go down, like doing it yourself or getting them to do it, like I think there's a lot to be learned from it. Like, as in, one thing that I didn't really kind of consider, like, I knew I had to do it, but I didn't realize how long it would take, is like the cleaning of a PCB afterwards. Like, as in, if I just assemble a PCB, throw it in the oven and take it back out, like it's pretty dirt. Yeah, you got your toothbrush there, right? You have to clean it up. I hope that's a dedicated one for this job. Like, you do that, and like that takes a significant amount of time. Like, but then if you get it from Maker Fabs, it just arrives, like ready to sell, basically. Like, I test everything I get,
but you know, it's ready to rock. Like, so I think like intermittent tech is saying like start with small batches and, you know, go up. I think that's a good idea. But like then you kind of have the other problem of, say, like if Dustin now goes down like the maker fabs route, or, you know, maker fabs aren't the only people around, but I do like them, so I'm happy enough to mention them. But like it'll be 5 to 6 weeks before he has them, you know, like as in just by the time you negotiate with them over, you know, what you want and what you're doing, and then by the time they assemble them all and ship them to you, like, you know, that's a long lead time to get into the next phase. Like if you're assembling stuff yourself, especially if you have like a quick source of things, like, you know, say if you wanted to assemble those, like you're probably getting the USBs from LCSC. You're probably getting everything from LCSC. Like you could have that stuff, like a Chinese New Year aside, but like you could have that stuff in your house next week. You know, so you could be assembling stuff next week, and as you assemble the first 100 or 50 or whatever, you can be listing them. So you're getting them so much quicker than off, you know, a maker fabs or whatever. So, yeah, and
I think you touched on there as well with Dustin, and I think the last time I saw it, he was up to something like 218 pre-orders. But then that brings up the question that Arturo mentioned on Twitter today. It's that pre-order. Because I just had one that I launched. I was going to talk about today, but I haven't finished any boards, which was something that's been ongoing forever. For a charge controller breakout, which maybe talk out another time. But that was slightly different because the wait list was over a huge period of time. So that was, I had that for like a year sitting up. So it was about 115 people, and I think about 20 have bought it. So it's maybe slightly different to Dustin's, but you've got people that use it as maybe just like a wait list or just a bookmarker to remind themselves.
Yeah, I think for the person like selling it and the person buying it, that is two completely different things. Like, as in, it's like, oh, this is a project I'm kind of interested. I'll join the wait list to see what's the story with it. Like, you know, I'll follow its progress. And then, you know, the person who's selling it is like, oh, there's 100 on the wait list. I better order 150 just in case. Yeah, it's a. And
really, it's not so bad if it's a tiny board like this, which is exactly $2, but in the case of Dustin or like an oscilloscope and things like that, you know, you're talking thousands, and that's big investment. But no, so it's going to be good. And I mentioned maker fabs there because other people have used them, and you know, learning these little tips and trick about, you know, like get them to supply a bag, but make it a resealable one because you want to test it when you get it. And
so what I do is I'll give you an even better step than that. I asked him to send the bag with the product and just ship, you know, just package the product up and send the bag separately, because you actually save like 10 seconds of at least of just opening the bags.
Well, there's 50 little Ziploc bags,
Yeah, exactly. But like, you know, when you're doing like 100 or something, like 10 seconds by 100 is like what, 6 minutes? You know, like it's, or I don't know what, somebody else do the maths, but it's significant, you know, like, and you save your little fingers a little bit too, so it's all good.
So that's going to represent a good little test me toe in the water, and there's maybe a few other things I could put their way if it works out. So, so it's like I said, it's in contrast to the other things tonight. It's very, very simple, but part of it was born out of a necessity, but it was also just.
I have one from, like, when I was looking around when you first joined, I was looking to try find my one because it's here somewhere, and like I got it off you because I've ran into this problem like multiple times where I'm trying to power something off a power bank, and my power bank is like, hey, this is too small, you know, and I'm just going to turn off.
Like a few of the sources that you see for the searches, there's been some astronomy forums that are doing like long time lapses, and they and it stops the camera turning off and stuff. And I kind of skirted over it, but it's an astable circuit on the 555, and it just does a pulse, like about a 50% duty cycle. So it should be enough of a pulse to keep the power bank going, but then not a constant load, so that's not going to drain your power bank down. And I should have mentioned that at the start, but that's basically the premise of it, to keep it alive. And the other reason actually why I had done it through hole was the thinking that people, if they really wanted to, could go and calculate a different duty cycle or anything like that. I don't think a single person has done that, which is maybe why the SMD one might be a better idea. And I think it's you could possibly get it lower duty cycle with some power banks, but it's finding that happy medium. It's not too high a draw, and it's.
I wonder, could you if you have the room for put in pads, you could have a resistor. I don't really know a huge amount about 555s, but there's a resistor and a capacitor that dictates how long the gap is, right? If you had a pad for a resistor in parallel with your resistor and a resistor in series, they could change the values by adding another resistor to the party or whatever. So maybe
it's definitely possible, but I think most people in the end just kind of
this is when I was releasing the power blocker first, every single person was like, switch, needs a switch. And I was just like, I just don't want the switch. It's just let's not complicate this. We won't put the switch on. And I think it's, been shown that the switch is fine. Nobody cared about the switch in the end. Maybe people would have maybe it would have sold more if I had a switch, but it's fine.
I think you've done okay on those.
I think it's fine. I definitely sold more of them than I ever thought I would. But anyways, thank you so much for joining, Colin. I appreciate it. Where can we find out more about this project?
I've got them on Tindy, or I've got my own web store going now as well, which I'm trying to push a little bit more. And then I'm on the Twitter, of course, as well.
The ePlop store now stocks power blockers as well, which I'm very happy with. It also used to stock I2S matrix shields, but they're all gone.
Yes.
Yeah, so we'll have to get on that. We'll have to get that supply chain up and running again.
Definitely.
But yeah, so thank you so much, Colin, and I'll chat to you again.
Thank you.
Okay, we have another one from the MakerCast family. We've got David Watts.
Hello, everyone. It's been a while.
Long time no chat, Dave. David, sorry. David. I always have to shorten David to Dave, and I know you prefer David, so
I do not. It's not that I prefer it. It's just my best mate is called Dave, and so it gets confusing. So I'm David to everyone, but I can be Dave to you. That's okay.
I don't know the other Dave, so yeah, that's cool.
I do just want to say, Colin's keep the USB power thing alive is great. I've got one power bank in my arsenal. This one here. That does not go to sleep, so it stays on constantly. It does mean it runs out after a couple of months, so even if it's not being used, but just the one is all I've got. So I think that's a great idea.
Yeah,
someone's mentioned the Pet in the background.
I've one thing that one power bank that's I'll run the power blocker tester off this thing, yeah. So that's a Pet.
Yeah, the Commodore Pet 2001 with the blue label. People love the blue label. That's the thing. It's the money shot.
I don't know too much about retro computers now, if I'm being completely honest.
Well, this one's a Commodore, big company back in the 70s, 80s, 90s.
We had
when I
a
had
Commodore
one
64, I think, at one stage, or at least I saw, as in I had access to one at one stage, but just I've never done anything with it since I was older or whatever.
It's just a kind of super cheap, basic computer, literally run basic computer that you could use. This one's from 1971, was used in an engineering facility for a while, so it was really greasy when I got it. And it's just beautiful. It doesn't really work very well, but I like the look of it. It's really heavy. Does
it have a label printer?
No, that's a tape player. That's a tape player, right? So you pop a tape in there, close it, press play, and load the programs off the tape.
Yep. Nice.
I don't use it. Well, I have used it. I've used it in some videos before. Anyway, let's move on from the old Commodore that's literally there as something nice to look at. So I've come for the project docs at actual advice.
Okay.
So other people have been showing off their projects and saying how brilliant they are, and they were brilliant. And I've come to just lower the bar a little bit for you, Brian.
Okay.
But so I've got 2 projects that I'm working on. I have been working on. I've taken a bit of time off recently. You know, there's been a global pandemic. Just thought, gotta chill out for a while. Yeah. So 2 projects I've got. One of which is related to this thing. In fact, I'm gonna have to turn down my camera exposure. So if you just bear with me a second.
Yeah, no problem.
Configure video. Ooh. So this thing, it's just a kind of bulb that you can buy.
Yeah.
And it's one of these flame bulbs, right?
Yeah.
And I bought one of these thinking, oh my God, that's going to be ace looking. And I got it, and it does look pretty cool. And if it was perhaps diffused behind something, it's going to look like a real flame. And then it struck me, maybe I could just make my own. So when I bought this, I took it apart. And inside is like a circuit board with LEDs on. Now, they're not LEDs that I've used before, but it's actually a flexible.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's flexible and it's wrapped all the way around. So you have LEDs all the way around. Now, I'm not stupid enough to think that I'm going to be good enough to design a flexible PCB right off the bat, but I could easily do a flat plain one with reverse, and then all I'm doing is missing the sides. Providing that I'm putting this lamp in a particular spot, I can angle it whatever way suits. So I thought I'd design one of these. I've not got any further than buying this and taking it apart and deciding that I want to make it. So how would you approach that, Brian?
So the first thing I would do is be really scared of the fact that we need to convert mains to DC on PCB. I would
go with low voltage, Brian.
Okay, so we're just going to assume that we have low voltage to begin with. Right. So we have a constant power supply?
Yeah, just DC is fine.
Okay, but it's not a battery, or is it a battery?
Not a battery. It'll be like just a DC switching power supply in a wall.
Okay. If you were really lazy, you would use WLED that the guys were talking about before, because there's candle modes in that, and you would use addressable LEDs, and there you go, you're done. Right?
They've already done candle things.
Yeah, like it's like flame mode, basically, where it, like, I guess, tries to simulate a flame, I guess.
See, I was thinking of doing, you know, like how people used to design old pixel, like, animations, and you do like squares of dots. I was going to do that and put them all in God, I sound really stupid when I say this now, and put them all in arrays, so it just had arrays of shapes, and just have a candle animation like that, and reference each different array or parts within an array. So that's what I was thinking of doing, but if it's already been created, maybe I don't need to do it.
Well, there's no harm in doing it again. So Stephen Ludgate sent Flame 2000, which sounds like a rave song from the millennium. But like, so maybe that's the name of the one that it's already there. Like, I have seen people do it using the matrix displays as well. I saw somebody doing a flame effect. You know, the ones that I use. Where are these bad boys? But that's too big.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Well, maybe it depends on your use case, but like, some people put the flame on this and, well, the fire on this, and it looks pretty good. But it's funny, you know, like, I think there's a serious amount of mats to get like a really realistic looking flame one. I guess, like, I don't see why you couldn't do what you were talking about, where you have like basically a GIF of a fire, right? And you're playing the thing over, like switching out the frames to the new one every time. Like, I don't see why that wouldn't work. But yeah, I think so. David, I'm a lot lazier than you when it comes to projects, though. Like, you like to dig into stuff.
I had like 6 months off, mate. Come on.
Yes, me too. I did very little last year, or towards the end of last year. But like, I like taking shortcuts wherever I can, while you're breaking out like binary decoder chips and stuff. Like, I'm,
Oh, mate. That's me avoiding programming. Honestly, that's what that is.
Yeah.
CMOS is a way to avoid any programming.
That's funny. I would do anything to avoid like getting into CMOSs, basically. But I love cutting every corner I possibly can. So like, the first thing I would be trying to do with a project like this is seeing who else has made like piece of software that is a good looking flame effect. That's what I would do for sure. And I don't want to has it. And look, so people are saying like, just wrap it around, like wrap some WLED tape around a pipe like Bitlooney did for his.
That is absolutely what Bitlooney did, isn't it?
Yeah, but that's cool, right? You see, you're cutting every corner. It's like from The Simpsons when Sherry Bobbins, or whatever the fake Mary Poppins was called. If you cut every corner, then the work doesn't seem as bad.
I think what I want to do, I think part of it is I want to design a circuit board that works, and that's part of the joy for me. So whether or not it's the most advanced thing or whether someone's done it before, it doesn't really matter. Like if I can design a board and call it Hot Watts, or I don't know, the name is part of how good it is, right? That's part of the fun.
This is the whole reason you're doing this. Is you came up with this name and you're like, I need to fit this into a project somehow. So Hot Watts.
Yeah, just like, if I can create a circuit board and make it work on both sides or whatever, despite the limitations of whatever I produce, I'll be happy. It's never going to be for sale. I think you were talking earlier about like Tindy sales, and I think I had 2 projects on there, and I maybe sold like 40 in total. I can't remember, but they've got like loads of back order or wish list things or whatever it was that people were mentioning. I'm not really gonna do another one of those because it's so much effort. Seriously just counting components into a bag. Oh my god, I could actually be making a new project rather than doing that. So unless a Chinese company says, look, we'll bag it all up for you and send it out. You could totally
do that. You could do that for sure. There is probably, I can imagine at least one company going, David, we do this. I am going to message you straight away. And I'm emailing you right now. Her name is Elaine. No, Elaine probably will email you. That's an inside joke for the people who make videos, apparently. Yeah. Elaine is the PCB rep, and she seemed very friendly, like a very nice person by all accounts. But I'm pretty sure PCB would do that if you wanted. Maker Fabs would definitely do that.
Do you think that is the same Elaine, or do you think that someone takes over that moniker after Elaine has left? Everybody that comes in is Elaine.
Did you get a message from one of the well-known shops at one stage said that like your rep has been terminated? I'm now taking his place.
I think it was something like Steve has been terminated. I'm now the new representative or something weird like that. Yeah, it was strange.
Oh, like what a way to word it as well. Like, hey, I'm taking over your account. No, Steve has been terminated. Yeah.
Well, it's China, isn't it? You never know. So the other project, Brian, I'm working on, right? This one you actually could help me with because I'm stuck in a little bit of a quandary and I don't know where to go. That sounds like lyrics to a song or something, but
that's poetic, yeah.
It's this thing. This is a bit difficult to show, right? So, Unexpected Maker did a Whopper display, and I kind of said, look, why don't you make it a game so people can interact online? It had an internet-enabled processor on it so that it could do that, and he basically didn't want to because he had so much to do. Basically, it was battling with that pick-and-place machine, so I don't blame him. Yep. So I thought I'd throw this together. It's just a ESP32. It could be many microcontrollers, but I just chose this one. Got some displays on there. It doesn't really matter how they're driven because I know how to drive them now. And essentially, I just feed it strings of information. Now, the idea is that you try and guess this code. It happens to be a word because that's a lot easier and it will go quicker. You don't want it to be just a random string of numbers and characters because it would be very difficult to guess.
Yep.
So I was looking at how people can interact with it. And right now, this works on a form on my website. So it will read a text file. It can also work through Twitter. But I don't think that's super accessible. And also, I'm just having to deal with their API, and it's a bit I don't know. The way I've coded it is a bit shit, and it's still rubbish.
Okay.
I meant
we're after the watershed.
Okay, after the watershed. And it will still rely on an external server in the way that I programmed it. So I was having a chat with the better Watts, old Dustin Watts.
Oh, okay.
And he was showing me his YouTube live chat code that he's written with the Arduino. And it's really good, but it requires a few little modifications for me to be able to get it to work. But there's a big rate limit problem with the API. So there's a quota that you have. So I can't ping it all that effectively. So I couldn't ping it every second to make it like highly interactive, which is kind of what you'd want it to be able to do. You'd also want to be able to grab the name of the person that got the last guess, who guessed the final word and that kind of thing. So can you think, and Twitch is one of the things that I was thinking of as a possibility, maybe writing my own Twitch bot that would respond to commands.
Twitch
Acrobatic
is,
did something similar.
Twitch is way better suited for this. YouTube's chat API is I don't think he did it on an Arduino. I think he did it on a Pi. He might have maybe even passed it through. The Twitch, or sorry, the YouTube chat is formatted really weird. I looked at it on a stream at one stage, and if you want to look at the last 10 messages, we'll say, right? YouTube have a thing where you can request the last, as in you put in how many of the most recent messages you want to see. The minimum seems to be 100 or something. So you go, hey, show me the last 10 messages or something, and it'll go, okay, here's the last 70 messages. And for a Raspberry Pi, that's no problem because they have all the memory in the world to go, okay, I'll read those 70 messages. But for an Arduino, that's a problem because you can't deal with 70 messages. So, what was it? Maybe you could say that you only wanted 10, but it started from 70 messages ago, and you needed to go through pagination to say, okay, I've read that 10, I need to move on. But the whole block of code that came back was massive. And it was just this is not going to be suitable to keep parsing through all this stuff.
Dustin's done quite a good job, actually. So you can request the last 20 now. And Dustin sort of integrated it into an Arduino JSON library. So you can just filter through really quickly. But you're also talking about a lot of text. But there's no way to figure out which message was the last message. The ID number isn't incremented. It's a random string of letters and characters. The only thing you got is time, but it's formatted in year, month, day, number. So then you have to convert that into, I don't know, epoch or whatever, Unix epoch, to get some kind of actual figure that you could use. So I think it's difficult. So Twitch seems like a really natural fit. I've seen people do real-time stuff, but you've done Twitch stuff with your displays. So I wanted to ask, how do you go about creating a bot?
So I don't know if my information would be out of date now, but the Twitch chat is a modified version of IRC, and you can definitely connect up to that with an ESP8266 or ESP32, no problem. That's not rate limited, because why would you rate limit somebody who wants to build interactive elements for a stream to engage audiences on stream? That makes no sense to be YouTube. why are you doing this to us? But yeah, like the Twitch chat is definitely ripe to do stuff like this with, for sure. If you search like Twitch chat Arduino, you'll probably find a library that it's not mine, but I contributed code to Twitch chat Arduino.
There's one called Arduino IRC.
Yeah,
and
that one.
You can link that one in. But I haven't tried it yet. So, and I didn't want to put loads of effort into doing testing because I think the only way you can do testing on Twitch is public. So you can't do an unlisted stream. So
That's true. You don't even need to be streaming though, I think, to chat. If I remember, you don't need to be live.
Yeah.
So you could stream, you know, and even if you're live, who cares, right? Unless you announce you're streaming, like you probably won't have anybody watching, you know. And if one person comes along and is looking at you streaming, hey, why not? Keep you company. That'd be nice.
I don't have a huge following on Twitch, I must admit. I've only ever played one game on there, so yeah. All right, so if you think Twitch will work, that is what I will approach. I could see Dustin in the chat, mate. I'm so sorry. I'm not going to be using the YouTube one. I have tested it. It uses too much quota to pull each chat thing, so it would run out too quick. So I'd want to ping it like every second, and it's something like the quota value you get is about 6 for every one of the actions that I would want to do. And you only get 10,000, I think, in a day.
Yeah.
And it doesn't sound like that would be a lot, but actually, if you're trying to do it every second over like maybe 2 hours, like those numbers really stack up. And plus, with testing added on, you're really like eating into that time. So something a bit more immediate like Twitch would be cool.
Yeah, I think Twitch is the way to go. There was a guy, he doesn't stream a huge amount anymore, called the Other Lone Star, and he used to have like bots that like battled against each other on the stream, and there were ESPs.
Literally watched a YouTube video from him the other day. Yeah.
He's a cool guy. He definitely well, I don't want to speak for his time commitments, but like I'd say he'd be happy to talk about that project. Yeah, like that was, you know, 2 robots running ESPs connected directly to Twitch chat, and you know, you were fighting using the Twitch chat. So like, if that's not real time responsive, then, you know, like you could not do that with the YouTube chat, as far as I know. Like maybe some people can. Like I see Aaron is saying that, you know, there's a crowd coding garden who does a lot of interactions. Like, say, like I would have only ever been able to check my YouTube subscriber count every minute or something like that because of the rate limit. But like, apparently Social Blade was using the YouTube APIs to do all their script or all their thing. So they must have just had an absolute massive rate limit, you know, so you can get bigger rate limits, but for this kind of a project, you don't really want to. Yeah, I think Twitch is better suited for this, for sure. And like with Twitch as well, you could technically, I would believe this would fall under the like kind of, I don't know if you remember. But you could even not be there, right? As in, you could have a stream of this thing, and people are trying to guess the code or whatever. One of my favorite things. I don't watch Twitch a lot. I don't watch live streams a lot, to be honest. But one of my favorite things that came out of like Twitch was Twitch Plays Pokemon. I think that was from like 2015 or something. Do you remember that?
I know what it is. Yeah, I've heard this.
It was so cool. Like, is it just this anarchy of like, anarchy was one of the factions, I think, in it, but it's just this like, I was working in the States when this was popular just for like a couple of weeks. And like, I was coming home from work and just like, you know, I was in the hotel doing nothing. And I was like, just reading up on the subreddit of all this stuff that had went on and like all this lore being built around Twitch plays Pokemon, it was just amazing. But yeah, so you could be the next Twitch plays Pokemon.
The reason I thought of Twitch was there's a game on Twitch, or people play on Twitch, called Marbles on Stream.
Oh yeah?
Have you seen it? Where
No.
You'll type in the chat and you can add yourself to the game. So you become a marble in this game and your name's attached to it. And it's like a maze and a race, and you can boost your marble by typing !boost and then a number. And so you can interact in real time. And I thought that is exactly what I want to do, is get people literally fighting over the chance to win this word guessing game. I think 8 characters might be a bit too small, and maybe I need to add another 4 characters to give a bit more length to the words. But
yeah, Envy actually, or maybe it's Envy. He hangs out in my Discord channel. He's here. He's done a good bit of Twitch stuff more recently as well, like integrating like lights and stuff into his stream. So he's another good person to potentially talk to about it. But I think Twitch is the way to go for this, 100%.
Look at you dropping all these people into giving away their time.
Anything to not give away my time. I know. If
only if I get stuck will I come looking for help from anyone. But I won't. I won't be too shy to do it. I promise.
Well, you can absolutely ask me. I just haven't done it in years. So, but I do want to go back to it. Like I'm definitely going to look up to see what Dustin has been working on, because he said that he got the last 20 messages. And also Arduino JSON released a feature quite recently as well, where you can tell it to ignore like blocks of JSON, like as in, so when I was working with the Google Maps API, like I wanted to get like the time it would take for me to go home, but they were sending me back like the step-by-step directions, which I did not care about. But like this was 20,000 characters long of step-by-step directions that I did not care. And like I had to use something other than Arduino JSON to get around this. But now you can just say, hey, I want to get back like time, and I want to get back this, and I don't care about the rest of it. Like if it doesn't match that, just don't bother parsing it at all. So like that might be a way to get around, you know, some of these problems of like, you know, like the payload being too big when it comes back. So yeah.
Well, Dustin's stuff was so, like, we just had a quick chat on Discord the other day about trying to get hold of the live chat stuff, but just for the comments alone, his code worked straight out of the box. I was getting 20 chats coming back. Well, not 20 because I only did 4 tests, but I was getting those chats coming back in his serial monitor like immediately. So it works super well.
Nice. Dustin, he says he's not much of a programmer, but he's a snake in the grass. Like
he's
with
the
FreeTouch Deck project is still one of the most impressive Arduino projects I've ever seen, and I don't know if he realizes that yet. Still, if anybody doesn't know it, search for FreeTouch Deck. It's an amazing project. Yeah,
I'm sure there are plenty of mods in the chat. Maybe one of them can just pop that in there.
Pop an old link. Yeah, literally everybody's a mod in the chat by the looks of things. Yeah. All right, David, thanks so much for joining.
It was nice to see your cute face, Brian.
Thanks so much. It's a little bit more, well, I suppose I'm always fairly beardy. Actually, this is fairly trimmed for me. I know,
I did see it and thought, who cut that? Who did?
Yeah, it was me. It
looks
was me.
good, mate.
But you see, I cut it with a razor like 2 weeks ago. So, you know, it didn't look that good 2 weeks ago.
Oh, so it was like clean shaven, not like you didn't use a hair trimmer or anything.
I used a hair trimmer, but so I wasn't bald at any stage, but you know, just with a tree blade or whatever and just straight off. But now I've had a couple of weeks of
It's got to be that tree blade, isn't it?
So has to be the tree blade. That was not on purpose. That was literally the blade I use. Yeah, the tree blade.
All right, mate. Yeah. Well, it's been lovely.
Thank you so much, David.
I like this. I like the stream format. It's really good.
Yeah, me too, because I don't have to do any work.
Perfect.
Just show up and just talk. Perfect.
Well,
and
I'll pop,
when I finish
pop back
as well,
next time when I'm stuck.
Yeah, no,
I'm going to take the couch next time. You can, if it's any kind of doctoring, right? It's not just project doctoring.
That's true.
Well, talk to you about my other problems too.
Yeah, well, I do use DOC because that's not a protected term. I do not want to give give the impression away. But yes, you can talk about anything. Okay, thank you so much, David.
All right, take care.
Talk to you again. Bye. Okay, Irish Tech Joe Rogan. I don't think that's entirely possible. I don't think so. But do you know what's funny? Actually, speaking of YouTube APIs, I'm on one side of my screen. I have the StreamYard page up, and on the other side, I have YouTube's live chat popped out. And the StreamYard YouTube chat is faster than the YouTube chat itself, which is crazy, right? Like I see Enwi's message in the StreamYard one before I see it on the YouTube one, which seems crazy. I did cut him off. I didn't realize he was going to say a long bye at the end, so I'm sorry, David. Yes, so everybody, thank you so much for joining. Really appreciate it. I do really like this format, mainly because I don't have to do any work. The next one will probably be back on the second channel again. I don't want to put too many streams on the main channel at the moment because I'm not currently releasing a lot of videos. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't like the idea of, you know, somebody going, oh, let me see what Brian's done for the last month, and be like, just stream, because people get the impression that you're a stream channel when you try to be a video channel. But anyways, yes, we could all look at David's sad face. Yes, so thank you so much for joining, everybody. Yeah, if you want to join in next time, join the Discord, tag me, and I'll add you to the group where the link is. And yeah, it'll probably be back on the second channel, and I will see you again. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.